Have you ever stopped and asked yourself if all the effort you pour into improving your life is actually making it better or quietly taking pieces of it away? You wake up each morning with a list of things to fix, habits to build, routines to optimize, and goals to chase. Every action is meant to push you forward, yet somehow at the end of the day, there's a nagging emptiness that whispers, is this all there is? You are told that growth is the path to happiness, that every moment spent learning, improving, and striving is a moment invested in a brighter future. But beneath that promise hides a subtle cost, a silent weight that creeps into your life without you even noticing. And the truth is, the very pursuit that is supposed to free you can often imprison you in a cycle of relentless expectation. You've been conditioned to believe that if you stop, if you pause, if you allow yourself a moment to simply exist, you are falling behind. Society celebrates the movers, the doers, the always better versions of themselves. Social media shows perfect routines, peak productivity, endless success stories, and every day you measure yourself against them thinking, I need to be more, I need to do more, I need to be better. And so you push harder, chase faster, and plan endlessly, telling yourself that happiness waits just beyond the next achievement. Yet with every step forward, the quiet cost grows. Less presence, less joy, less connection to yourself and the world around you. It's exhausting, isn't it? That constant feeling of being in motion yet never arriving. That ache in your chest when you realize that all the books read, the routines followed, the early mornings and late nights haven't filled the space inside you the way you imagined they would. There's a gap between the life you're building and the life you are actually living. And recognizing that gap is the first step toward freedom. Because once you see the cost, you gain the power to reclaim what was slipping away. The simplicity, the presence, the moments that remind you why life is meant to be lived, not constantly fixed. What if I told you that you could grow, improve, and transform, but without sacrificing the joy of today? That the very energy you pour into chasing perfection could instead be redirected into creating a life that feels vibrant, alive, and real? This is the hidden promise of understanding the trap beneath the surface. Staying with this journey, watching carefully, listening deeply, will reveal something most self-improvement guys never tell you, that true progress is not measured in endless achievements, but in the way you feel, the depth of your presence, and the courage to live authentically. If you continue with me, if you allow yourself to open your eyes to this truth, you will discover how to break free from the subtle chains of constant self-optimization. You'll see a path where growth and life do not compete, they coexist. In that coexistence, you will find energy you thought was lost, peace you thought was impossible, and a clarity that transforms every choice you make from mere motion into meaningful action. By the end of this journey, you will not only understand the trap, but you will have the tools to step out of it, reclaim your life, and finally feel the liberation that comes from knowing that improvement does not have to steal your life. It can enhance it in ways you never imagined. The truth is, chasing better has a cost you may not even notice. Every habit tracked, every goal pursued, every hour spent optimizing your life chips away at something far more essential than achievements. Your presence, your peace, your ability to simply be alive in this moment. You've convinced yourself that growth is measured in output, in visible progress, in metrics that can be checked off a list. But the reality is, these measures are often illusions. They keep you busy, focused, and exhausted, while the quiet parts of your life, the moments that bring real fulfillment, slip by unnoticed. You can fill your day with action and still feel empty because you are not nourishing the part of you that craves connection, meaning, and authentic joy. Consider how it feels to spend weeks, months, or even years pushing toward an ideal that exists only in someone else's blueprint. You follow routines because you've read that they work. You chase habits because they promise transformation. You invest in learning, practicing, and refining because that is what success demands. And yet inside there's a subtle whisper you ignore, a sense that life is passing by while you're endlessly preparing for some future version of yourself. You begin to realize that self-improvement can become a quiet thief, stealing not only your time, but your ability to appreciate the moments that already belong to you. The very energy meant to elevate your life becomes the force that keeps you from living it fully. This is where awareness becomes a weapon and clarity becomes liberation. The first step is acknowledging the hidden cost. That relentless striving can actually distance you from the life you're trying to create. Science confirms what your instincts have always known. Studies on stress, overwork, and perfectionism show that constant self-optimization erodes not just mental health, but emotional resilience and life satisfaction. People who chase achievement without balance often report higher anxiety, lower joy, and a persistent feeling of incompleteness. The paradox is clear. By trying to become more, you may be losing the very thing you most want: peace, presence, and fulfillment. Imagine if you could step off the treadmill of endless improvement without guilt. Imagine reclaiming hours, moments, and energy to invest in things that actually feed your soul. This is not laziness, and it is not failure. It is recalibration. It is the courage to recognize that life cannot be measured solely in accomplishments, and that the relentless pursuit of better can mask the silent erosion of everything that makes life rich and meaningful. Your joy is not waiting in the next milestone. It exists now in small breaths, in the simple act of noticing, in the quiet courage to pause, reflect, and exist without judgment. You have the power to shift the lens through which you see progress, to redefine growth not as endless striving but as deepening presence, to replace anxiety with intention and pressure with purpose. The energy you once surrendered to chasing ideals can instead ignite a life that feels alive, expansive, and real. By understanding the cost of constant self-improvement, you open a door to liberation. You step into a space where growth supports life rather than consumes it, where action becomes aligned with meaning, and where every choice, every effort becomes a conscious step toward living fully, not just moving forward. The path is not about doing more. It's about reclaiming what was quietly slipping away and discovering the richness that already exists in this moment. There is a subtle force at work every time you measure your worth against someone else's life. Every time you compare your progress, your achievements, or even your potential to the curated versions of others. Comparison is quiet, invisible, and devastating. It creeps in through social media feeds, conversations, and even your own thoughts, convincing you that your life is somehow less, that your efforts are insufficient, that you are behind. And each time you fall into this trap, the pressure to improve intensifies, not because it serves you, but because it distracts you from noticing the life you already have. Your energy is siphoned into a relentless cycle of measuring, striving, and judging, leaving your heart exhausted and your mind restless. The psychology of comparison shows that it doesn't just harm confidence, it rewires your perception of yourself and the world. You begin to value external markers over internal satisfaction, seeing progress only when it matches someone else's standard. Happiness becomes conditional, dependent on surpassing others instead of embracing your own growth. Every moment spent in envy, self-doubt, or judgment is a moment stolen from your own experience, from your ability to feel content, to breathe deeply, to simply exist without the weight of expectation. You may be achieving, improving, and growing, but at what cost? The truth is, comparison silently robs you of your autonomy, convincing you that the life you have is never enough. But there is freedom in awareness. When you recognize the mechanisms of comparison, you reclaim choice. You begin to understand that your journey is yours alone, that the only benchmark that matters is the one you set for yourself. Psychological research confirms that internal standards grounded in personal values and self-compassion lead to greater satisfaction and long-term fulfillment than external validation. Every time you resist the urge to compare, you strengthen your resilience, you reclaim your energy, and you deepen your connection to your own life. You start to see that growth is not about outrunning someone else. It is about outgrowing your own limitations and fears. Imagine the liberation of measuring your progress not by what others have, but by the small victories you achieve, the courage you show, the moments you embrace fully. Every conscious step towards self-defined success releases the pressure that comparison imposes. Every time you stop chasing someone else's version of better, you open space for presence, for authenticity, for joy. Your energy shifts from anxiety and judgment into creativity and connection. The life you've been so desperate to improve becomes a life you can inhabit fully, without distraction, without the silent theft of your attention and your peace. Comparison is not something you can eliminate entirely, but its power can be diminished when you choose awareness over reaction. You can choose to redirect the energy you spent measuring yourself against others into building a life that aligns with your values, your passions, and your sense of purpose. You begin to understand that the hidden cost of relentless self-improvement is not the pursuit itself. It is the way it is often defined, measured, and distorted by forces outside of yourself. When you reclaim your standards, you reclaim your life. You stop chasing someone else's path and start walking your own, fully, boldly, and with a sense of freedom that transforms every step into meaningful progress. Your life is yours to define, and every conscious choice to step out of comparison brings you closer to the fulfillment that has been waiting quietly inside you all along. You have been taught to believe that being busy is the same as being productive, that filling every moment with tasks and goals is a sign of worth. Society glorifies the relentless pursuit of achievement, the never-ending to-do list, the early mornings and late nights dedicated to progress. And for a time, it can feel rewarding. There is a rush, a sense of accomplishment, a fleeting high that comes from crossing off item after item. But research in psychology and neuroscience reveals a hidden truth. The more we chase productivity as a measure of our value, the more it erodes our clarity, our creativity, and our ability to enjoy life. Our brains are not designed for constant motion. We were meant to pause, reflect, and savor. Yet the myth of infinite productivity convinces us that every idle second is wasted, every moment of rest is failure. The danger lies in the subtle theft of attention. Every hour spent optimizing, tracking, or pushing forward is an hour diverted from presence from the people you love, from experiences that nurture your soul. You may feel productive, but the life you are living can feel hollow. The satisfaction derived from action fades when it is never balanced with meaning. When achievement becomes a substitute for fulfillment, stress accumulates quietly, mental fatigue deepens, and a persistent restlessness lingers. Even when your day appears full, the pursuit of more has become a silent trap, convincing you that motion equals progress while silently stealing your connection to what truly matters. But there is power in breaking the cycle. When you recognize that constant productivity is not a marker of value, you open the door to presence, creativity, and genuine accomplishment. Neuroscience confirms that deliberate pauses, reflection, and focused attention allow your brain to consolidate learning, spark innovation, and maintain emotional balance. True progress is not measured in relentless action. It is measured in the alignment of effort with purpose, in the clarity that comes when your actions serve your deepest values, not just external expectations. You can work, create, and improve without sacrificing the richness of your life. Imagine a life where productivity is a tool, not a tyrant, where every action is deliberate, meaningful, and energizing rather than exhausting. When you replace the compulsion to do more with the intention to act wisely, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your joy. The hours you once surrendered to mindless busy work become opportunities for growth that feels natural, fulfilling, and sustainable. You begin to see that slowing down does not hinder progress. It amplifies it because it allows your mind and spirit to align, to focus, and to flourish. The path forward is a radical redefinition of effort. It is not about filling every moment with motion. It is about investing in what truly matters. Each pause becomes a moment of clarity, each reflection a chance to course correct, each conscious action a step toward fulfillment. You are no longer a prisoner to endless productivity. You are the master of your time, your focus, and your energy. By stepping off the treadmill of constant motion, you discover that the life you have been striving to improve is waiting for you all along, vibrant, alive, and ready to be experienced fully. Every deliberate choice becomes a declaration that your life is not for checking boxes. It is for living deeply, richly, and unapologetically. Perfectionism often wears the mask of ambition, convincing you that every step, every decision, every action must be flawless. You tell yourself that if you just refine one more habit, read one more book, or plan one more step, then you will finally arrive. But the truth is, perfection is a moving target, a standard designed to keep you perpetually striving and never arriving. Research shows that perfectionism is closely linked to anxiety, procrastination, and chronic dissatisfaction. You may appear disciplined and committed, but underneath your mind is caught in a loop of judgment and self-criticism. Each imperfection becomes a failure, each delay a personal flaw, and the very pursuit meant to elevate you becomes a weight that drags you down. This relentless self-policing creates a paradox. The harder you chase perfection, the further fulfillment recedes. Every act of improvement can turn into a mirror reflecting what you lack rather than what you have. You measure yourself by standards that are often unattainable, comparing your reality to idealized versions of life and self. The emotional cost is high: frustration, guilt, and the quiet ache of never feeling enough. Even success can feel hollow because it is filtered through the lens of what is still missing. You are trapped in a cycle where growth and suffering are inseparable, where the pursuit of better blinds you to the value of now. But there is a way to break free, and it begins with understanding that imperfection is not a flaw. It is a natural state, a signal that you are alive, learning, and evolving. Psychologists have found that embracing imperfection and self-compassion reduces anxiety, enhances resilience, and actually improves performance over time. When you shift from a mindset of judgment to one of acceptance, every step forward becomes a choice, not a compulsion. You learn to recognize effort as achievement, progress as success, and mistakes as essential elements of growth rather than proof of inadequacy. Imagine how it would feel to release the constant pressure to be flawless, to wake up and approach life with curiosity instead of fear, with courage instead of self-criticism. Each decision would carry intention instead of anxiety. Each action would be guided by purpose rather than the need to measure up. You would begin to notice the subtle joys in your work, your relationships, and your personal growth, moments that perfectionism once overshadowed. You would reclaim the energy wasted on self-punishment and redirect it into living fully, embracing challenges and savoring victories both large and small. Perfectionism is a cage you can unlock. By choosing to see imperfection as a natural companion to growth, you transform every struggle into a teacher, every setback into insight, and every moment into opportunity. You step off the treadmill of relentless judgment and step into a life defined by courage, authenticity, and presence. The pursuit of better no longer steals your peace. Instead, it becomes a conscious, balanced journey that enhances your life rather than diminishes it. By embracing imperfection, you reclaim not only your energy and focus, but the freedom to live a life that feels rich, real, and profoundly yours. Motivation is often glorified as the engine of transformation, the force that propels you forward, the spark that ignites change. Yet motivation is fragile. It rises and falls like a tide, and when it ebbs, doubt and inertia creep in. Science shows that relying solely on bursts of motivation is a trap. High motivation without structure leads to burnout, frustration, and cycles of start and stop progress. You feel inspired one day, unstoppable the next, and completely drained the day after. This inconsistency creates a subtle form of self-sabotage, a quiet erosion of confidence and momentum. You begin to believe that if you aren't constantly motivated, you are failing, when in reality, motivation alone is never enough. The paradox is profound. The harder you chase motivation, the more it eludes you. You consume content, read books, watch videos, and chase inspiration as if it were a resource you could stockpile. Yet motivation is not a permanent state. It is a spark meant to be harnessed, not relied upon as the engine of your life. Relying on it alone leaves you vulnerable to doubt, comparison, and the unrelenting pressure to achieve. Every time motivation fades, the old fears resurface: fear of failure, fear of stagnation, fear of not being enough. The cycle repeats, leaving you trapped between brief surges of energy and long stretches of self-reproach. But there is a deeper way to act, a method rooted not in the fleeting highs of motivation, but in consistent, purpose-driven action. Psychology shows that habits, discipline, and deliberate practice far outperform sporadic bursts of inspiration. When action is grounded in intention rather than emotion, it becomes sustainable, freeing you from the emotional roller coaster of trying to always feel ready or inspired. Every step taken with awareness, every choice aligned with your values, builds momentum that lasts far longer than the temporary rush of motivation. You begin to trust yourself, to rely on your capacity for focused effort, and to recognize that meaningful progress is not about feeling driven, it is about being deliberate. Imagine the relief of stepping off the roller coaster of highs and lows to wake up and know that action does not require constant exhilaration, that courage is not dependent on feeling perfect or ready, that growth can unfold quietly, steadily, and powerfully. Every small decision you make intentionally compounds, and the pressure to be endlessly motivated dissolves. You reclaim energy once spent chasing emotion, redirecting it into tangible, meaningful steps that actually transform your life. You realize that true change comes not from fleeting sparks, but from the quiet, disciplined rhythm of consistent, conscious action. This understanding rewires how you approach growth. You no longer wait for the emotional surge to act. You act because your values demand it, because your life deserves it, because you are committed to yourself, not to someone else's timeline or expectation. Motivation becomes a companion rather than a master, a spark that illuminates your path, not a chain that binds you to fleeting feelings. When you internalize this, you step into a life where action and presence coexist, where progress is measured by depth and alignment rather than intensity, and where every choice strengthens your sense of purpose, freedom, and self-trust. You discover that transformation is not about chasing motivation. It is about cultivating a steady, unshakable rhythm that carries you forward, even when the emotional tide recedes. There is a danger in self-improvement that few admit. It can become self-neglect. You chase goals, refine habits, optimize routines, and perfect your life on the surface, while the deeper currents of your well-being are ignored. Mental, emotional, and even physical health quietly suffer as attention is devoted to progress rather than presence. Research confirms that relentless self-optimization often correlates with higher stress levels, increased anxiety, and diminished satisfaction. The paradox is cruel. In striving to build a better version of yourself, you may be sacrificing the foundation that makes any growth meaningful, your capacity to feel alive, connected, and whole. Think of all the ways this shows up in daily life: skipping meals to squeeze in another task, sacrificing sleep to check another goal off a list, pushing past exhaustion to hit targets defined by someone else's standards. You may feel proud in the short term, even accomplished, but underneath is a creeping exhaustion, a subtle depletion of the very energy and joy that your goals are meant to enhance. Every sacrifice chips away at the emotional reserves you need to engage fully with your life. You begin to confuse doing more with being more, forgetting that your worth is not measured in output, but in the depth of your presence and the richness of your experiences. The first step in reclaiming yourself is awareness. Recognize the patterns where self-improvement has become a disguise for self-neglect. Psychology teaches that balance is essential. Growth without care, action without rest, and achievement without reflection leads not to liberation but to quiet suffering. When you notice these patterns, you gain the power to shift them. You start to see that taking care of yourself, your body, your mind, your heart is not indulgent but foundational. Energy, focus, creativity, and clarity all come from tending to yourself first, not last. Imagine a life where your pursuit of growth does not steal from your well-being, where your mornings are not battles against exhaustion, where your evenings are not haunted by unfinished lists, and where every step forward is supported by a strong, nourished foundation. By prioritizing self-care alongside growth, you amplify your capacity for meaningful action. The energy once lost to fatigue and stress is redirected into focus, creativity, and presence. You no longer operate from depletion, you act from abundance, vitality, and alignment with what truly matters. Reclaiming yourself is not a radical overhaul, it is a series of conscious choices, choosing to eat, sleep, rest, and breathe as much as you choose to act, learn, and achieve. Choosing reflection over constant motion, presence over performance. Choosing to honor your limits not as weaknesses, but as signals of life's natural rhythm. Every small choice to care for yourself strengthens your resilience, sharpens your focus, and deepens your capacity to experience joy. Self-improvement stops being a thief of life and becomes a partner in living fully. You begin to realize that the most profound growth is born not from endless striving, but from a balance where your mind, body, and spirit are nurtured, energized, and free to flourish. There's a freedom that comes when you allow yourself to let go. to release the relentless grip of schedules, lists, and expectations, to recognize that life does not require constant fixing, that your value is not dependent on endless achievement, and that the pursuit of more does not guarantee fulfillment. Psychology shows that acceptance, detachment, and presence are not signs of weakness. They are the pathways to resilience, creativity, and deep satisfaction. When you stop trying to control every outcome, you reclaim energy and clarity. You open space for growth that is natural, unforced, and deeply aligned with who you truly are. Letting go does not mean abandoning ambition or neglecting your dreams. It means recognizing which battles are truly yours to fight and which pressures are borrowed from the expectations of others. Every moment spent chasing what you think you should be doing is a moment taken from experiencing what you actually are doing. Each time you release the need to optimize, perfect, or measure yourself against impossible standards, you step into a new reality, a life guided by choice, not compulsion. Your energy shifts from constant tension to focused intention, from fear of falling behind to courage to live fully here and now. Consider the subtle ways holding on steals your life. Your mind is always planning the next step. Your heart is waiting for the next achievement. Your body is fatigued from the endless push. All of this is done in the name of improvement, yet improvement itself is incomplete if it costs your peace. Neuroscience shows that chronic stress and hyper-focus on future goals diminish emotional well-being and impair your ability to engage creatively with the present. The irony is that the very act meant to enhance your life can quietly drain it. But there is a radical liberation in choosing to let go, to trust that life can unfold even without your constant interference, to embrace imperfection, uncertainty, and the natural ebb and flow of effort and reward. Every time you allow yourself to pause, to breathe, to simply be, you reclaim a piece of life that was quietly slipping away. This is where authentic growth emerges, not from frantic effort, but from conscious alignment, from understanding that presence is as powerful as action, that being is as meaningful as doing, and that peace is the soil from which lasting transformation grows. Imagine the sensation of stepping out from under the weight of constant pressure, to feel your mind clear, your heart open, and your body energized, not drained, to recognize that every action you take can be purposeful, not compelled, that every goal you pursue can be inspiring, not enslaving. When you let go of what does not serve you, you create room for what does: connection, clarity, joy, and deep fulfillment. The hidden trap of self-improvement no longer controls you. Instead, it becomes a tool, a guide, a partner in a life lived fully, intentionally, and courageously. By embracing the art of letting go, you awaken to the freedom and richness of a life that has always been waiting for you to notice it. What if everything you've been taught about success is only half the truth? What if the life you've been chasing, defined by milestones, habits, and achievements, is only a fraction of what fulfillment truly is? Society tells you to measure progress by accomplishments, to define worth through recognition, to chase more in order to feel complete. Yet research in positive psychology reveals that true satisfaction comes not from accumulation, but from meaning, purpose, and connection. The endless pursuit of external markers can blind you to the richness of your own experience, leaving a void where contentment should reside. You begin to realize that success, as you've been taught to define it, may not lead to the life you actually want to live. Redefining success as an act of courage. It requires turning inward and asking the questions most people avoid. What do I truly value? What brings me energy, joy, and purpose? What would I pursue if no one were watching, if no external standard existed to measure me? Psychological studies show that aligning daily actions with personal values produces higher life satisfaction, deeper motivation, and a profound sense of meaning. When you redefine success on your own terms, you shift from a life dictated by obligation to one guided by intention. The pressure to perform dissolves, replaced by a clarity that transforms effort into fulfillment. The challenge is immense because it demands letting go of old definitions that have been reinforced for years. You must release the idea that worth is earned only through accomplishment. You must recognize that life is not a series of metrics to be conquered, but a field of experiences to be embraced. Every time you achieve something without joy, without alignment, you have surrendered part of your life to someone else's standard. But every conscious choice to act from your values is a reclamation of self, a deliberate step toward a life that feels authentic, empowered, and deeply satisfying. Imagine waking up each day guided by your own compass rather than society's checklist. Every decision, every action becomes infused with intention rather than obligation. You feel the freedom to prioritize what truly matters: relationships, creativity, growth, and experiences that nourish your soul. The energy once spent chasing hollow goals is redirected into living a life rich in purpose. You begin to measure progress not by how much you do, but by how deeply you are living, how connected you are to yourself and those around you, and how fully you embrace the present moment. Redefining success transforms your internal landscape. Anxiety over deadlines, comparison, and performance begins to fade. Motivation becomes sustainable because it is fueled by intrinsic purpose, not fleeting external pressures. You act from alignment rather than compulsion, creating momentum that feels natural, energized, and fulfilling. By letting go of the old imposed definitions of achievement, you reclaim autonomy over your life. You begin to understand that self-improvement is not theft. It is a tool, powerful and liberating, only when it serves a life defined by your own values, passions, and authentic desires. Every choice to measure yourself by your own compass is a step into freedom, clarity, and profound fulfillment. Presence is more powerful than progress. Yet in a culture obsessed with achieving, it is easy to forget that the richness of life exists in the moments you are fully aware, fully engaged, and fully alive. Studies in neuroscience and positive psychology confirm that attention shapes experience. When your mind is elsewhere, planning, worrying, striving, you miss the texture of life unfolding around you. The sunrise, the conversation, the simple act of breathing, these are the moments where meaning, joy, and growth converge. Yet, when self-improvement becomes a relentless pursuit, these moments slip past unnoticed, and life becomes a series of tasks instead of a living, breathing experience. To embrace presence is to reclaim life itself. It is a conscious decision to engage with the moment rather than chase an idealized future. Each pause, each breath, each deliberate act anchors you in now, turning ordinary moments into profound experiences. Psychology shows that mindfulness strengthens emotional resilience, reduces stress, and enhances performance, not by adding more to your life, but by helping you fully inhabit what already exists. Presence transforms effort into experience, ambition into alignment, and action into meaningful engagement rather than empty motion. Imagine the liberation of living fully in each moment. The anxiety that once accompanied every task begins to dissolve, replaced by focus and clarity. Each choice becomes intentional rather than compulsive. Each interaction becomes deeper. Each achievement becomes more rewarding because it is felt, not just ticked off a list. You start to understand that life is not a race towards some future milestone. It is an intricate tapestry woven from the attention, care, and awareness you bring to the present. Every moment you inhabit fully is a victory, every breath a gift, every step a testament to the life you are creating. Presence also reshapes your understanding of self-improvement. Growth is no longer about constantly striving to fix or add. It is about fully experiencing, reflecting, and refining from a grounded space of awareness. When your actions arise from presence, they carry purpose, clarity, and energy. The endless drain of perfectionism, comparison, and external validation loses its hold. You begin to operate from a place of abundance, where motivation, discipline, and insight flow naturally, fueled by conscious engagement rather than pressure or fear. By choosing presence, you reclaim your time, energy, and sense of self. You start to notice the subtle richness in everyday life, the satisfaction of effort well applied, the beauty of imperfection, the power of connection, and the depth of your own thoughts and feelings. You realize that self-improvement, when guided by presence, enhances life rather than steals it. Every habit, every action, every step becomes meaningful because it is experienced fully, consciously, and with alignment to your values. You step into a rhythm where living and growing are inseparable, where the life you want is not a distant horizon, but the unfolding reality of every present moment. Presence is not a pause from life. It is the true measure of its richness, the path to fulfillment, and the foundation for growth that nourishes rather than depletes. Action without anxiety is possible, and it is one of the most liberating shifts you can make in your life. For too long, you may have equated productivity, progress, and achievement with pressure, stress, and constant urgency. Every task carries a weight, every goal feels like a burden, every choice is accompanied by self-doubt. Neuroscience confirms that chronic stress and anxiety reduce focus, impair decision-making, and limit creativity. Yet when action is grounded in clarity, purpose, and alignment rather than fear or compulsion, it becomes effortless, energizing, and deeply fulfilling. You no longer chase motion, you step into meaningful momentum. The key is to separate doing from judgment. Action does not require approval, validation, or perfection. Each deliberate step you take is valuable, even if it does not produce immediate results or external recognition. Psychological research shows that intrinsic motivation, acting from personal values and purpose, sustains effort far more effectively than extrinsic pressure. When you align action with what matters to you, the tension that once accompanied every task diminishes. You act with confidence, focus, and flow, and your energy is directed toward creation rather than anxiety. Imagine the relief of moving through your day without the constant undercurrent of tension. Each action feels natural, intentional, and aligned with your deeper purpose. The weight of expectation dissolves, replaced by clarity and calm determination. Tasks no longer feel like obligations, they become opportunities to exercise agency, to make choices that reflect who you are and what you value. The more you practice this, the more effortless it becomes to engage with your life fully without the drain of self-imposed pressure. This approach transforms self-improvement itself. Instead of chasing progress with stress and perfectionism, every effort becomes a conscious step toward growth, grounded in awareness and purpose. You begin to notice the quality of your actions rather than the quantity, the impact of your effort rather than the judgment of outcomes. This shift produces sustainable momentum, builds confidence, and reinforces your sense of agency. You start to realize that meaningful transformation does not come from frantic striving, it comes from deliberate, mindful action that honors your energy and values. The liberation is profound. Anxiety no longer dictates your pace, nor fear of failure limits your choices. You begin to trust your judgment, your rhythm, and your capacity to navigate life without needing constant reassurance or external pressure. Action becomes a source of energy, motivation, and clarity rather than exhaustion and self-doubt. Every step taken in alignment with purpose reinforces your sense of control, deepens your focus, and strengthens your connection to the life you want to lead. By embracing action without anxiety, you reclaim the natural rhythm of growth. You realize that improvement is not a demand, but an opportunity. Every choice, every effort, every small movement forward is a chance to practice presence, courage, and intentionality. The trap of relentless pressure dissolves, leaving only the clarity and freedom to live fully, act consciously, and grow without sacrificing the peace and vitality that are the foundation of a meaningful life. Small wins have a power that is often underestimated. The pursuit of monumental change, dramatic transformations, and rapid results can blind you to the profound impact of tiny, deliberate actions. Research in psychology and behavioral science confirms that incremental progress not only builds momentum, but rewires the brain for long-term success. Each small choice, each tiny victory compounds over time, creating a foundation of confidence, focus, and resilience that no overnight effort can match. Yet many people ignore this truth, seeking shortcuts or immediate gratification, and in doing so, they sacrifice the steady, lasting growth that comes from consistent, purposeful action. Every day presents countless opportunities for small wins. Completing a task you've been avoiding, taking a conscious breath before responding, choosing presence over distraction, aligning one decision with your values. These moments matter far more than the grand gestures you obsess over. Each choice strengthens your sense of agency, your ability to act with purpose, and your confidence in navigating life's challenges. The cumulative effect is extraordinary. What begins as a minor, almost invisible action becomes a force that reshapes your habits, your mindset, and ultimately your life. Imagine the empowerment of shifting focus from monumental change to attainable progress. The pressure to be perfect, to achieve everything at once begins to dissolve. Each small win becomes a celebration, a proof of your capacity to act, to grow, and to move forward intentionally. The energy that once went into stress, comparison, and self-criticism is redirected into motivation, clarity, and joy. You start to understand that transformation is not a distant event, but a series of deliberate, conscious choices that accumulate into a life of meaning and fulfillment. Small wins also cultivate resilience. When challenges arise, when progress stalls, or when setbacks threaten to derail you, the foundation built through consistent incremental action becomes your anchor. Psychology shows that confidence and self-efficacy grow when you recognize and reinforce these small successes. They remind you that effort is powerful, that consistency matters, and that your life is shaped by the choices you make each day, not by sporadic bursts of intensity or fleeting inspiration. Each small victory reinforces the truth that you are capable, that you are moving forward, and that your energy and attention are creating tangible, lasting results. By embracing the power of small wins, you shift your relationship with self-improvement. Growth becomes sustainable, joyful, and aligned with your values. You no longer chase an endless horizon of perfection or external validation. Instead, you build a life from the ground up, moment by moment, choice by choice. Every small win is a declaration that you are present, capable, and committed to living fully. It is in these seemingly minor victories that freedom, confidence, and fulfillment take root. The life you have been striving for is not a distant goal. It is the sum of these small, conscious actions, each one moving you closer to the liberation, clarity, and richness that have always been within reach. Living fully is not about doing everything perfectly, achieving endlessly, or constantly optimizing every aspect of your life. True fulfillment comes from embracing life as it is, with all its imperfections, uncertainties, and contradictions. Psychology shows that people who prioritize meaningful experiences over constant achievement report higher levels of happiness, resilience, and life satisfaction. When self-improvement becomes an endless checklist, life loses its depth. But when you shift focus from perfection to presence, from output to experience, each moment becomes an opportunity to feel alive, connected, and purposeful. To live fully is to choose courage over comfort. It is to step into the moments that matter, even when they are messy, uncertain, or incomplete. It is to engage with life without the filter of judgment, comparison, or expectation. Every interaction, every task, every breath becomes infused with intention. You begin to understand that the richness of life is not measured in accomplishments alone, but in the depth of your engagement, the quality of your choices, and the authenticity of your presence. This shift transforms self-improvement from a source of pressure into a tool for meaningful living. Imagine the liberation of approaching each day, not as a series of goals to conquer, but as a landscape to explore. You notice the texture of experiences, the subtle beauty in ordinary moments, and the power of being fully present. Anxiety over outcomes diminishes. Perfectionism loses its grip, and motivation becomes intrinsic, fueled by purpose rather than fear. You start to act not because you have to, but because every action resonates with meaning. Life becomes richer, not because you are doing more, but because you are fully inhabiting each step, each choice, each moment. Living fully also redefines failure. Setbacks are no longer signs of inadequacy. They are essential elements of growth, learning, and resilience. Imperfection becomes a teacher, not an enemy. Research confirms that embracing vulnerability and imperfection enhances creativity, strengthens relationships, and increases overall well-being. Each perceived failure transforms into insight, each challenge into an opportunity to practice courage, and each moment of uncertainty into a chance to deepen self-trust. You realize that growth and life are not separate. They coexist in the rhythm of conscious engagement. By choosing to live fully, you reclaim your time, energy, and sense of purpose. You stop trading your presence for endless striving, and you start investing in experiences that truly matter. Every action is intentional, every choice aligned with your values, and every moment is recognized as part of the life you are building. Self-improvement becomes a partner, not a taskmaster, supporting you in cultivating courage, presence, and authenticity. The life you desire is not a distant dream. It is present in every conscious choice you make, every risk you take, and every moment you decide to live with intention. Living fully is a declaration of freedom. It is a commitment to embrace imperfection, to act with courage, and to prioritize meaning over measurement. The pressure of endless self-optimization fades, replaced by clarity, joy, and resilience. You begin to see that the most profound transformation does not come from constant doing, but from living deeply, courageously, and authentically. Each moment becomes an opportunity to grow, to connect, and to experience the life that has been waiting for you all along. Transformation does not happen through obsession with perfection or constant comparison. It emerges when you cultivate self-awareness, align with your values, and act intentionally. Too often, self-improvement programs emphasize quantity over quality, more goals, more habits, more productivity, without asking the essential question, does this action bring me closer to the life I truly want to live? Research in psychology reveals that people who pursue growth with clarity, purpose, and self-compassion experience deeper fulfillment, higher resilience, and lasting change. When self-improvement is rooted in intention rather than compulsion, it becomes a tool for liberation rather than a source of pressure. Every action you take carries power, but that power is amplified when it is conscious. You are capable of enormous growth, yet it must emerge from a place of clarity, not chaos, from alignment, not obligation. The relentless pursuit of better can blind you to the life you are already living, to the subtle joys, meaningful connections, and personal strengths that exist right now. By cultivating awareness, you reclaim the ability to choose which efforts truly matter and which expectations are borrowed from others. Each conscious choice strengthens your sense of autonomy, energy, and self-trust, replacing anxiety and doubt with focus and purpose. Imagine the impact of acting from clarity instead of compulsion. Every decision, every step forward carries weight, not because it is demanded by society or comparison, but because it resonates with your inner truth. Motivation becomes natural, sustainable, and intrinsic. Pressure gives way to presence, and achievement becomes aligned with meaning rather than measurement. You begin to recognize that true growth is not a linear accumulation of skills or accomplishments. It is the cultivation of wisdom, courage, and the capacity to live fully, even in the face of imperfection. This approach also transforms the way you view challenges and setbacks. Obstacles are no longer failures, they are signals, teachers, and opportunities for refinement. Studies show that resilient individuals thrive not by avoiding difficulty, but by responding to it with intentionality and reflection. Each setback, when approached consciously, builds strength, insight, and adaptability. You realize that self-improvement is not a race to a distant goal. It is an ongoing dialogue with yourself, a commitment to act with awareness, and a path toward authenticity that enriches every moment of your life. By grounding growth in conscious action, you reclaim your energy, focus, and presence. You are no longer driven by fear, comparison, or the relentless push to be more. Every choice reflects your values. Every effort reinforces your agency, and every step becomes a meaningful contribution to the life you are creating. Self-improvement stops being a thief of life and becomes a vehicle for living with depth, courage, and intention. The life you desire is not distant or conditional. It exists in the deliberate, conscious actions you take each day. Transformation rooted in awareness is profound because it honors both growth and presence. You can pursue betterment without sacrificing joy, progress without losing peace, and achievement without forfeiting authenticity. Each choice becomes a declaration of your values, a reclaiming of your energy, and a commitment to a life fully lived. You discover that the hidden trap of self-improvement is not the pursuit itself, but the way it is often defined. When you act with clarity, alignment, and presence, self-improvement becomes a source of liberation, empowerment, and lasting fulfillment. Balance is the hidden force that transforms self-improvement from a relentless pursuit into a sustainable journey. Too often, growth is framed as an all-or-nothing endeavor. Push harder, achieve more, optimize every moment. The problem is that extremes exhaust the mind, body, and spirit. Psychology and neuroscience show that sustainable progress arises when effort is tempered with rest, focus is coupled with reflection, and discipline is balanced with self-compassion. Without equilibrium, even the most dedicated efforts can erode energy, motivation, and fulfillment. leaving you trapped in a cycle of striving that feels endless and unrewarding. True balance begins with awareness. It requires paying attention to the rhythms of your own life, recognizing when action energizes you and when it depletes you. You start to notice the difference between effort that serves your growth and effort that simply satisfies obligation or external expectations. Each choice becomes an opportunity to align with your values, to act intentionally, and to honor both ambition and presence. The pressure to constantly improve begins to fade, replaced by a steady rhythm where effort and rest, doing and being, coexist in harmony. Imagine the relief of approaching life with this kind of balance. Your days are no longer defined by endless motion, anxiety, or comparison. Tasks and goals become meaningful actions, not burdens. Your mind feels clear, your energy replenished, and your motivation steady. You recognize that every pause is not wasted time, every reflection not a delay, and every moment of rest not a failure. Balance allows you to act with precision, focus, and intention, while also maintaining the clarity and vitality that make meaningful action possible. Balance also reshapes your relationship with self-improvement. Growth is no longer a source of stress or a measure of worth. It becomes a practice integrated into the flow of life. Habits, routines, and goals are pursued not as obligations, but as tools to enhance your presence, creativity, and fulfillment. You learn to listen to yourself, to trust your energy, and to choose actions that propel you forward without sacrificing your well-being. This conscious equilibrium turns improvement into a source of empowerment rather than exhaustion, and it fosters resilience, focus, and authenticity in every aspect of your life. Every choice toward balance strengthens your sense of agency. You begin to operate from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, where time, energy, and attention are invested deliberately. You are no longer caught in the trap of measuring progress by quantity alone. You measure it by the quality of your engagement, the alignment of your actions with your values, and the depth of your presence in each moment. Each deliberate decision to honor both effort and rest reinforces a sustainable path to growth and fulfillment. Balance is the key that unlocks the full potential of self-improvement. When action and reflection, discipline and rest, presence and growth coexist, life becomes richer, more fulfilling, and deeply aligned with who you are. You discover that improvement does not have to be relentless or exhausting to be powerful. By embracing equilibrium, you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your capacity to live fully. Growth becomes a steady, purposeful journey rather than a thief of life. And you realize that the most profound transformation is born not from extremes, but from the conscious balance that allows every moment, every effort, and every choice to serve both your life and your freedom.